If you're just starting architecture school, please don't make the same mistakes I did. Architecture studies get overwhelming very fast, and unless you learn how to avoid common traps, you'll probably end up exhausted, overworked, and most likely asking yourself if you even belong in architecture. So how do you succeed architecture without pulling all-nighters, without sacrificing your weekends, and still finishing your projects on time? In this video, I'll share the exact habits and strategies that got me through 5 years of architecture school. I managed to avoid all-nighters, and even so my grades improved. I'm sharing today the 5 mistakes I'd avoid if I could start over, so you can do it right from day one. The first thing I would do differently is to go to every class and actually listen. Especially in first year, I went to classes but didn't really find it interesting, and I just felt like I was losing time to work on my project. But the truth is, the time that you're winning then, you're actually losing it in the future. Yes, the class that you're going to might not seem interesting, but it's the foundation for all the work that you will do in the next years. Especially at the beginning, your theoretical classes are so important. And more than giving you the foundation, the knowledge about architecture and how everything works, it also can give you really good examples of projects or techniques that you can maybe in your next project or in the next years actually use for your own designs. And these classes have such a value, but students just kind of forget it because it doesn't seem as efficient, as productive as just working on the project. But please go to your classes and actively listen. Don't do like me. My first year was a bit of a mess. It was COVID. We had classes online, and really half of the time I wasn't listening to anything or even attending. And I really felt it during the exam, but also during then the practical part, because I just lacked some basic knowledge. So please go to class, and when you're in class, don't work on anything else. Listen to what the teacher has to say. And the best is to take notes or find a way to stay actively listening so that everything gets engraved in your brain. You know, your high school teacher might have already said that to you, but if you listen in class, 50% of the work is actually already done for the exam. Well, in university, it's pretty much the same. And so please apply the same method. So forget about the deadline that is coming tomorrow. Please go to class and listen to your teachers. Now that you're going to class and getting all the input you want, you might be stressed about the projects or the deadlines that you get. Architecture gets very stressful very soon. And going with that comes the idea that you have to work a lot, very hard, that you can't take any break because otherwise you will never finish on time. So this point is, please, for every single architecture student, prioritize your sleep, prioritize time with your family and your friends. Architecture won't give you that time. They will never tell you, oh, you should actually go on a weekend to see your family. Oh, you should actually sleep way more. It would be better for you. Most of the culture in architecture is very, very toxic. And we as person, as individuals, especially as students, we have to put our own boundaries, because if you don't put your boundaries, no one will do it for you. So please prioritize your sleep. Sleep is so important. It's what makes you pretty much function. And if you start depriving yourself from sleep from the beginning of your studies, after maybe 1 year, 2 years, or a bit more, you will be extremely burnt out. But also there's people who have post-traumatic symptoms after too many all-nighters. This has an impact on your health. You know, sometimes it's really important to remind yourself that it's only studies, it's only a fake project, and your physical and mental health should not be less important than that. Health is the most important, and you should keep it in mind. I know you start getting like really into your projects, getting super stressed about the deadlines. You feel like you don't have enough hours in the day, and where those hours are actually in your sleep. But really, when you don't sleep, you don't function. When you don't sleep, you can't work, you can't learn, you can't think. And usually, even when you don't sleep or sleep too little, then what you will produce is actually worse than what you would do with less hours, but with your entire brain. So sometimes the most productive is actually close your computer, go to bed, get a night of sleep, and come back during the next morning. To everyone studying in any design field, avoid all-nighters, avoid staying up to finish a project. It's not worth it. It might feel worth it at that moment, but really it's not worth it in the long run. This culture has to change, so let's change it from the root, from the people not doing it. Next important thing I wish I had done a bit earlier is actually to take a step back from your work before the presentation. In design and architecture, we have to present our work and then we are judged on our work. work. The problem with that is that our work most of the time is something very personal. It's something that we put a lot of effort in, that suits our own view of the world, our own tastes. And when we get bad criticism about our work, it feels like it's a direct criticism to our person. But there is a difference between your work and your personal worth. So when a teacher or a person is judging your work, they're not judging you as a person. And the best way of not getting affected by any kind of criticism on your work when you're designing is actually to yourself take a step back. I try before I'm presenting, like the day before, to actually take a step back in my project and think, if I were a teacher, what would I see that doesn't really fit? What would I think? And most of the time I actually get a lot of stuff that I'm like, yeah, this like objectively is not that great. And when you actually arrive at the presentation having this in mind, you present your project, you do everything as you usually do, but then when the criticism comes, first of all, you anticipated it, so it's no surprise. But second of all, you already got the distance, you already got to look at your work from another perspective, and so it doesn't feel like it's your own self-worth. It's just your work and something that you did, and it's at a specific moment. It's not your person. And the criticism or how good or how bad your project is doesn't mean that you're a better or a worse person. There's so many people who come out of presentations in tears, and really you don't want that. You need to keep a distance because you have to protect yourself. And in the end, as I just said, it's only a project, it's only studies, and it's not your personal value. So keep it in mind when you are presenting. Something else that I wish I had started sooner is actually to manage my time, to put the deadline at least a day earlier, to actually have time to work on my storytelling and my presentation. I've rushed so many times, actually just scribbling a few things to present, and when it's like this, you don't really have the best ideas, you don't bring the best elements at the best moment. But the truth is, in your project, when you're presenting, it's so important. The way that you're going to present your project will have such an impact on the way that it's understood, that a good project that is badly presented can actually end up looking worse than a bad project super well presented. So please put the time, put the energy, put the mental effort into your presentation. It's so important. You haven't done all this work for nothing. You need to get your presentation right so that the people understand your intentions, understand your concept, and that you can actually tell them with your words, your process, your ideas, and how much your project makes sense. I started taking care of my presentations in second year, and it really made a big difference. I worked on the storytelling, trying to really focus on the analyze that we already did, and then our first intentions and how it went on and on and on. And usually the comments that I got at the end was, wow, the presentation was super clear, we really understand your project, and now we can actually talk about it. The worst that you can have is when at the end of your presentation people are asking you about stuff because they didn't understand. So please finish your project earlier. Take a little step back, again, think, okay, I'm going to talk to a teacher, I'm going to talk to this person, what do they need to know? Take the people as if they never saw your project. We're just too into it and we don't see anything anymore. But really take the step back and think, okay, how can I explain it to someone who has never seen it? How can I explain every step so that it all makes sense? The all making sense is the key into succeeding in architecture. Another thing that I would do differently is about model. This is very specific, but if you're an architecture student, you know models can be so expensive. But most of the time, you're not evaluated on how expensive your material is, but more on how well it showcases your project. So in second year, again, I decided to learn from my mistakes from the year before and to actually put a budget limit to my models. I heard so many stories about people spending 100 more euros on a model for having like a very bad grade, and I was like, I don't want to put that amount of money into a model. It's not worth it. So I decided to put 40 euros as a maximum budget and try to find alternatives to get the results that I wanted with materials that were not costing as much. So I usually try to keep my materials super simple. I also try to look in the recycle bin and get the cheapest version possible. But something also very important, I was ready to change my concept or to change my project to actually be able to make a cheaper model. Yes, a lot of people would say, no, you shouldn't do that. But the truth is, I am a student, I don't don't have unlimited money, and if the project that I'm making is gonna cost me 100+ euros in modeling, I don't want to do it. So I also really consciously made design choices so that the model would be easier to make. And it really worked. I'm really glad. Most of the time, your model is actually here just to support your project, to showcase it, not to show how expensive your models can be. So if you can, really try to keep the costs down. It's also going to take some pressure out of you, because you will know it's fine even if I got wrong. It didn't cost me 20 euros for this exact piece. So these are the traps that I avoided after learning from my first year of architecture's mistakes. And once I did, my studies became much more enjoyable and also much more sustainable. And if you can remember only one thing, it's that working smart always beats working hard. You don't need all-nighters to succeed. You need good habits, balance, and curiosity. So if you're starting architecture school in the next year, comment any questions that you have that I can answer in a video. And if you're already an architecture student, please add your own tips or the things that you learned from your first years so it can help the other people watching this video. I hope you liked this video. Subscribe to follow more about architectural life, and I'll see you in the next video.